Good evening, everyone. Are we ready to get started?
You're good to go, Melanie.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening for Valley Water's virtual public meeting on the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project. I'm Melanie Richardson. I'm the Assistant Chief Executive Officer of Valley Water, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project, which is designed to improve the reliability of the dam by making it strong enough to withstand a major earthquake. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about next month's scheduled lowering of the reservoir levels, what to expect before, during, and after the reservoir is lowered. You'll also hear tonight from District 1 Director John Varela and from the project team on what we can expect in the months ahead. At the end of the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions of the project team. But before I get started, I'd like to introduce Albert Lee from Valley Water's Office of Communication. Albert will provide some helpful information on how to access the tools for this Zoom virtual meeting and how to ask questions during following the presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Albert.
All right, thank you, Melanie. I'm going to share my screen here for a little bit. I know most of us are pretty familiar with Zoom, but just in case, for those who are joining us for the first time, also, please don't mind me wearing a face mask. I am indoors with other people, so I'm taking every necessary precaution for that. So again, you are on a Zoom webinar platform. This is mainly a listen-in platform. If you see the icon on the left side of the screen, that's how you can join audio. I'm assuming you were able to do that. Some of us may be in a very with poor internet signal or have bandwidth issues. So you can actually call in using the number above and the meeting ID or webinar ID that was sent as part of this invitation. There will be opportunities to ask questions during this Zoom webinar and public meeting. We recommend that you put the questions in the Q&A portal that should be at the bottom of your toolbar. We don't recommend actual questions being put into the chat. That tends to get very, very quickly. And so again, please use the Q&A portal as much as possible. You also have the opportunity to use the raise hand function if you would like to ask your question verbally. So when that happens, an icon will on our end pop up next to your name. I will enable your microphone and you will unmute yourself. Again, I will enable your microphone and you will unmute yourself. That's it from me, and I just want to acknowledge that we have about 100 people in attendance tonight, and so thank you all for joining us. Melanie, back to you.
Thank you, Albert. And we are joined tonight by Water District Director John Varela. He represents this community as part of District 1 on the Valley Water Board of Directors. Director Varela was appointed to the board in 2015 and then re-elected in 2018. He has deep ties to the city, having served as council member and mayor. We appreciate his time and ask that you welcome him tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Director Varela. You're muted, Director Varela.
Let's try this one more time. Thank you, Melanie, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this virtual setting, and welcome to those of us watching on Facebook. I would like to extend my well wishes to our community and send my positive thoughts to those who were forced to evacuate during the fire the last couple of weeks. We are also still coping with COVID-19 related challenges, so I hope we all continue to be safe during this extraordinary time that we're living in. The seismic retrofit Anderson Dam is Valley Water's top priority, and now we're moving forward with our efforts to ensure the safety of our community. On October 1st, that's just 2 weeks from tonight, we will begin to lower the water levels of Anderson Reservoir to the lowest practicable level possible, as the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has regulated and directed Valley Water to do so. The effort will take approximately 2 months, depending on how much rain we get this winter. So as early as January 2021, we could have a very different kind of view of Anderson Reservoir. And it will be that way for a long time. It is the unfortunate reality of the work that we need to take place. I understand the concerns about impacts in our community, our wildlife, and dealing with the loss of some recreational activities. We have taken all those things into consideration. And later tonight, our staff is prepared to answer your questions. I can tell you that when the work is done, our communities in Morgan Hill and Coyote Creek will be safer. The work will be well worth it. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We look forward to sharing the project information and answering your questions. Melanie?
Okay, thank you very much, Director Varela. And before we move any further, I wanted to acknowledge one of our other board members who's here in attendance, Director Richard Santos. I'd like to acknowledge him. Thank you, Director Santos, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. And now, thank you, Director Santos. I would like to now turn things over to Chris Hakes, our Deputy Operating Officer in the Dam Safety Division, and his staff to present information about our upcoming work. After his presentation, we will answer questions from the public sent to us prior to the meeting. We'll also be able to answer questions you bring up today. With that, I turn it over to Chris Hakes.
Thank you, Melanie. So I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully this will work. Put us into slideshow mode. Okay, so we're going to talk Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project tonight. So just a little background on Anderson Dam and the project. Anderson Dam is our largest reservoir, holds approximately 90,000 acre feet if you round up, 89,000 acre feet if you want to be more specific. We can actually fit all 9 of our other reservoirs inside of the footprint for Anderson. In 2012, after a seismic stability analysis, Valley Water undertook what is the Seismic Retrofit Program, and as a result, came up with the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project. That was just to bring the dam up to current safety standards. The dam was constructed in 1950 and was appropriately built to the standards at the time, but obviously 70 years later, standards have changed, and we want to make sure that we can withstand what we know about an earthquake today. On February 20th of this year, 2020, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, you'll hear them referred to as FERC throughout this process, issued an order that we were to undertake early implementation of what are called interim risk reduction measures. So what does that really mean? It means because the project is scheduled to take 10 years, it was started in 2012, has not started construction yet, they were a little bit uncomfortable with the potential risk associated with an earthquake when the dam might be above the seismic restriction we had in place. That happened, not an earthquake, but the level above the seismic restriction happened in 2017. So that kind of spooked them in conjunction with what happened at Oroville, where they saw that there might have been an imminent dam failure. They wanted to basically be extra safe. So they requested that we do several things, or directed, I should say, us to do several things. This is the existing dam. As you can see, we have the spillway on the upper left. It's kind of the lighter shade of cream. We have a small outlet pipe that runs directly under the dam embankment. It can discharge at about 500 CFS. That's not much compared to the actual volume of the reservoir. 89,000 acre feet discharged at 5,000 CFS, and you're talking, 500 CFS, and you're talking a very long time to drain, which is part of the reason we're undertaking the project. We have our dam crest, which is basically just the roadway that runs across the top of the dam embankment and the dam embankment itself. This was the seismic retrofit project after a few evolutions. You can see here we're going to remove all of the liquefiable material and reconstruct the embankment so it doesn't liquefy. So basically, originally when the project was envisioned, they thought the seismicity in the area and the suitability of the soil was such that we could just add more material to the downstream face of the dam. So that's the dry face. Unfortunately, when we went in and did our seismic studies for our geotechnical analysis in about 2016, the results came back that the large portion of the core would liquefy. Basically, you hadn't heard the term liquefy, what it means is basically if you get an earthquake, the embankment, the dirt kind of turns into a pudding consistency and slumps down. So it drops down in the middle about 20 feet. As that's the case, we have to remove the embankment completely, just leave the clay core, and then reconstruct it with suitable materials. I mentioned Oroville in 2017. Originally, when the project was envisioned, we were just going to patch the spillway, kind of look for cracks and other things, patch those, kind of spruce it up a little bit. But after Oroville, the Department of Safety of Dams, which is California's entity that controls dam safety, it's a division of the Department of Water Resources, DWR, completely revised spillway design criteria. And as a result, we have to replace our spillway entirely. We're going to install a new low-level outlet pipe. I mentioned in the last slide that the outlet pipe currently goes under the dam crest. When the dam does liquefy, that would potentially damage the pipe. It could basically shatter in half, kink. We would lose the ability to discharge. So our new outlet pipe will go around the dam embankment through our abutment, basically through some solid rock material or material that's a little bit more suitable. And will also be bigger. We'll be able to discharge at a greater rate. In the interim, before the project actually starts for the seismic retrofit, as a part of the Anderson Dam Tunnel project, the new low-level outlet pipe will discharge about 2,000 CFS. So between that and the existing outlet, we'll have about 5 times the capacity. We'll temporarily create a diversion system to dewater the reservoir to allow us to do construction. And then we have our high-level outlet pipe. As part of the requirements the Department of Safety of Dams, DSOD, has put into place, we require a high-level outlet system that allows us to drain about 30% of the reservoir capacity in 7 days if directed to in case of emergency. So what happened on February 20th? Our dam crest is about elevation 647. That's basically above sea level. We had a restriction in place of elevation 592. That is the level to which that even if the dam slumped during an earthquake, we would still be able to retain all the water behind there. Ferk on February 20th said they wanted us to immediately lower the restriction to elevation 565. At elevation 592, we have about 58% capacity of the reservoir, about 50,000 acre feet. Down at elevation 565, it's about 35%. We were already in compliance when they gave us that direction because we were in our winter operations, so that was not a big deal. But then they also directed us to take the necessary measures to prepare to drain to elevation 488. That's called dead pool. As Director Varela mentioned, it's the lowest practicable level that we can drain to. And what that means is that's the lowest level we can drain the reservoir to, and with the existing piping that's in place out there right now. That does not mean the reservoir is empty. We still have about 2,700, 2,800 acre feet at elevation 488, but it's a lot less than what we have now. It's about 3% total. We are supposed to develop a plan to maintain dead pool, obviously start draining to dead pool on October 1st. And then here's the key, we are supposed to expedite design and construction of the new outlet tunnel. You can see this is the plan view of our new diversion structure and outlet tunnel. That's what will give us the extra capacity to better control the reservoir. The last thing they tacked on was obviously to move the larger project forward, secure our permits, and complete our design. So what does dewatering look like? Last time that Valley Water officially dewatered our reservoir down to the bottom was 1987. This is what it looked like then. You can kind of see the mud, the sludge and muck. We will not be down to this level, at least initially. Through this first phase in the tunnel construction, we will have water present in the reservoir, about 3%. But once the seismic retrofit project starts, the ADSRP, we will get down to a dry bottom. What does it mean? Well, we're not going to have any boating starting October 1st, basically through the duration of the project. There won't be enough water in the reservoir to utilize the boat ramps. And when it's dry, of course, there'll be no boating allowed at all. So that could be 10 years. We're hoping to finish sooner than that, but there will definitely be boating restrictions. There will additionally be hiking restrictions and recreation restrictions in the area. When the reservoir is completely drained, it will be an active work site. There will be stockpiles of material and equipment, so it won't be a safe environment. And even when it's drained in the interim, when we're building the tunnel, it'll be kind of water in the middle, but muddy on the slopes. So there's the possibility that someone could get kind of stuck in the mud. We don't want that. So basically all of the recreational activities associated with the reservoir itself will be off limits. As a result of draining, these pictures are also from 1987. If we drain too quickly, we could induce landslides in some of the unstable areas. Fortunately, we recognized what happened in '87, so we've submitted a plan to FERC to drain at a very measured rate in order to prevent these slides from happening. However, we are currently doing geotechnical explorations of these landslides to make sure that we can properly characterize and monitor their composition and movement if it occurs while the drawdown is happening. We are currently out there. I believe we started on September 15th-ish or 14th. Actually, I believe it was September 14th, and it will go through October 15th. These are some of the equipment you might see out there right now. The upper left corner is a drill rig. On the bottom right corner is kind of a sloping drill rig. You can see basically those would be used to either take core samples or install equipment. You've got a dozer in your upper right moving and grading dirt, and then you've got a smooth roller compactor on the lower left corner, and basically that's to grade the area out. What are some of the potential impacts? Once we are down to dead pool, after a significant storm event, you'll see the water level in the reservoir rise. We are under direction by FERC to keep it as low as possible for as long as possible. So even though that water level rises, we're going to go ahead and discharge that into the creek. So you'll see a temporary rise in the reservoir level and then a corresponding increase in flows in Coyote Creek after storm events. During the kind of construction, you'll hear noise from equipment. We will be starting construction on the tunnel itself probably around February of 2021. So you can hear, engines, backup alarms, maybe you'll see some dust, but that should be under control by the contractor. That's what they're required to do. Now, work activities will primarily be Monday through Friday in the day, normal business hours, but some Saturdays may be required. If there is, usually a notification will go out to the residents that may be affected. You may also, as the reservoir gets lower, detect some unique smells. We don't expect a fish die-off with 2,300 acre-feet of water. We still expect that the fish will be able to survive, at least initially. But if the water does get warm, we could have a lot of nutrients and algal blooms. That tends to deplete the oxygen levels, and we can get a hydrogen sulfide smell. It's the kind of typical rotten egg smell that you guys may have smelled before, kind of next to a sewer. That may also affect some of the wildlife in the area if they're still present. It will really depend on the climatic conditions. In terms of our project schedule, I would focus on the upper schedule because that is what we're currently dealing with, the Anderson Dam Tunnel project, which is what was created as a result of the FERC order. We are going out we're currently in design, we're at 100% design. Our different plans and specifications have been submitted to the regulatory agencies for permitting and approval. We expect to go out to construction early 2021, February. And then that elevation 488 will keep that construction, basically will keep that will be at dead pool through construction of the tunnel. Tunnel's going to take about 2 years. We have an additional lake tap that needs to be done. So the total construction of the Anderson Dam Tunnel project is probably around 3 years. We expect to finish right around December 2023. Right after that, we'll immediately flip to the Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project. Right now, we are still showing that the project's going out to 2030 with some restoration activities in 2031. Obviously, we're trying to compress that. It's still a little bit farther out. It's really going to depend on what we find through our permitting process, what different things need to be done to mitigate the impacts of construction. But we're going to take full advantage of the window that's been given to us to try to compress that construction schedule to get done sooner. You can see right now we're looking at a fully dewatered reservoir. That's because that's what the order that FERC has given us is. If they decide to revise their order and allow a different reservoir level, we'll communicate that with the public. I believe that's it in terms of my presentation for this evening. I'll go ahead and pivot to questions. Stop sharing my screen first.
Chris, before we begin questions, I would like to just do a repeat on some of the instructions for the Q&A. I do notice we have a lot of calling callers today.
Okay.
Just going to momentarily brief here. And those who are joining us, we have about 100 different people joining us via Zoom, and about another 23 on Facebook Live. For those who are joining us by phone, you are able to raise your hand by clicking on your phone *9. And once we call your name out and enable your microphone, please press *6. All right. Thank you, Chris. It's back to you. Okay.
So we do have some questions in their Q&A, and you're also free to raise your hand, and we'll pivot over. First question is from Mark. I believe it's Taganachi or Tagasini. Once the lake is empty, will we be able to walk and hike in the lake bed? I think I might have mentioned that during construction, when that lake bed is empty, it will be an active staging ground. We will have equipment and materials stockpiled there. So you will not be able to access the lake bed for hiking, at least towards the dam. You know, we have quite a large reservoir and footprint. So in the upper watersheds, there may be some areas, but it's really going to depend on the staging areas, and if any water is present, and whether it's a safe condition. Annette Beatty, I understand that Robert Rivas' bill expedited this project. Why is the timeline for completion still 2030? Does this not feel like a top priority when the project, or excuse me, this does not feel like a top priority when the project will not begin until 2024? I think I also mentioned that the project has been effectively bifurcated because of the FERC order. Construction of the low-level outlet tunnel was always scheduled to happen as part of the project itself. It was originally scheduled to begin in fall, probably October of 2022. The FERC order and the emergency declaration allowed us to begin construction actually early in 2021. However, the split between the two projects has dropped the efficiency down. We are still in the process of permitting. So the project is starting early. We're starting in 2021. The reason it's still going to 2030 is because it's now 2 projects instead of 1. So we're attempting to kind of squeeze that down, and we'll do everything we can to finish before 2030. Another question from Ms. Beatty. Will the reservoir be kept at full capacity after the dam is reconstructed? The intent of Valley Water is to restore the capacity of the reservoir for water supply and flood protection purposes, so that 89,000 acre feet would be available for us to use. It'll really depend on what the climatic conditions are and how our use is coming with the rest of the county. But yes, the thought is we will be able to restore the full capacity, and therefore, if it dictates that we should have the full water level, we will. Ms. Bate again. If it took 1 year to build the dam in 1950, why does it take 10 years to reconstruct? That's a very good question. That's one of my favorites. And it comes down to the standards of the day were a little bit different in 1950 than they are now. You know, construction standards are different. The seismic standards that we have to build the dam to are, and definitely our environmental and permitting standards are different. Part of the reason it's taken so long to get to construction is that we are coordinating and consulting with the National Marine Fisheries Service. And what they told us was they weren't even around in 1950 when the dam was originally constructed. And as a result, they need to look at the dam in its entirety, not just from construction, but from an operational point of view. So when they're doing this consultation on the project, they're not looking just at the impacts for the dam construction, but also from the dam's post-construction operation. So long story short, there are a lot more things to be concerned about in 2020 than there were in 1950. Miss Beatty's on a roll. She's got a couple more questions. Let's see. Are there any incentives for completing the project ahead of time or even on time? Our specifications are structured that there's always an incentive to finish the construction early or on time. There's actually a disincentive. We don't call it a penalty clause, but there is a damage clause present if there are delays caused by the contractor that cause them to finish behind schedule. Basically, that is a quantification of the damages suffered by Valley Water at the time. Let's see. This seems to be a question from our communications department. I take it he copied it over from the chat, perhaps. What construction is going on north of Anderson on the east side of 101 going north? I'm going to hazard a guess that up there is some drilling that's being done for the landslide monitoring and mitigation. There may be another project in the area, though. I will ask Aaron Baker to chime in if he knows what project that might be.
Yes, Chris, I believe I do. This is Aaron Baker. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Deputy Operating Officer over the Raw Water Division here at Valley Water. So the construction going north of 101, or going on the east side of 101 going north, I believe is the Cochrane line valve reconstruction. So we have a pipeline called the Cross Valley Pipeline that basically runs from Anderson Reservoir to Calero Reservoir. And there is a large valve that we use to regulate the flows through that system. And so we replaced the vault there. So you saw a bunch of sheet piles and a bunch of digging and a bunch of other things going on in there. And then we put in a brand new valve that'll help us regulate the system and also help for the safety of the system if there were unforeseen leaks or other things happening on that pipeline. So I do believe it was the Cochrane line valve that is going right along Cochrane Channel there, right before you hit Coyote Creek on 101. And if that's not it, please reach out to Tony Mercado and we'll try to figure out exactly what you're looking for.
Thank you, Aaron. Thankfully, someone has raised their hand in the attendees list, and we'll get a break from me constantly reading questions. I've got Fred Iris, Irachi, thank you.
You're welcome. So I actually had two questions. The first one was, once you go down to the 488 level, is the entire Coyote Creek going to go dry all the way to San Jose?
So the answer to that is no. We will continue to discharge water into the creek. We have imported water that basically can go into Anderson or the creek down below Anderson. We're working with the National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and California Department of Fish and Wildlife on what the appropriate level of discharge into the creek is. We do want to keep up our groundwater recharge, so we will be keeping the creek wet.
Oh, perfect. Good answer. Okay. And then the second part of it was, you said you were going to increase the size of the drainage pipe from 500 CFS to 2000 CFS. I'm assuming that that's going to continue to stay where it is relative to the creek, where that outflow is. Is that correct or not correct?
So the 500 CFS discharge will definitely be through the existing creek. We are trying to restore the north channel, which is the historic creek, to discharge the 2000 CFS. 2000 CFS is quite a bit of flow. If it was discharged into the existing channel, we would probably create some erosion issues. So we would have to harden the channel. Generally, our environmental regulators don't like it when we harden the channel. We like natural flood protection elements. So we saw the opportunity to restore the north channel as both a mitigation element and a way to prevent erosion. Okay. We also have Ms. Blessing, who's looking to ask a question verbally.
Hi, I was just putting in the chat, and again, we'll ask verbally, if the Rosendon side of the county park will have trails available that we can do that are not near the dam, that we can access, especially if we live in Holiday Lake Estates and have access without contributing to traffic.
So we did have a meeting with, or a public meeting with the Holiday Lake Estates residents, and this did come up because there seems to be some confusion over a sign that's posted near the park. I did talk to County Parks last week, and they have indicated the park is open and the trail should be open as well. There's just one specific trail that goes from Rosendon to, I believe, the North Anderson Park or something similar that is off limits. So I would suggest that if there's any doubt, please call the county and they can clarify for you. But the idea is to keep those trails open. It looks like we have Agnes.
Yes, how much will this project cost and where is the funding coming from?
So the total cost of the whole Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project is estimated to be about $576 million. About 335 of which is slated for construction of the dam embankment, spillway, and outlets. Now that we've bifurcated the project, we expect that the tunnel portion will cost a certain amount, which will be subtracted from the overall project cost. Funding-wise, we do have funding through our Safe Clean Water Initiative for about $45 million. I believe that escalates over time, so it may be up to 65 at this point. And then the rest is borne on the back of water rates. So as part of our water rate analysis and our planning, we had been planning to do this project, since about 2016 for construction. So since 2012, we've been making the proper allocations to make sure that our water rates put a little bit aside for the project every year. So it's fully funded through water rates at this point, and we don't expect that there will be any sort of funding issues. I'm going to pop back over to the Q&A real quick. I think Ms. Blessing's question about Rosendon Park was answered. We'll go back to Ms. Annette Beatty. We've got, can dam construction happen simultaneously with the tunnel project? Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Because the tunnel itself is going through the right embankment, there are some impacts for when we would be removing the embankment. There's just a conflict of space and geometry that prevent us from doing both projects at the same time. Michael Shropshire, I believe that's right. Will the bike path be available throughout this work? I'm not sure which bike path you're referring to. I will defer that to, is Sarah Piramoon on the line by any chance?
I am, Chris.
Ah, there she is.
So the bike path, I'm guessing you're referring to the Coyote Creek Trail that is downstream of Anderson Dam. And we are working to keep that open. At this point, there's no reason to close it. Just like in the wintertime when we have high flows, portions of it get closed. So there could be some detours, but nothing related to construction impacts.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's always on top of it. It's great to have her present. I have Mr. Dave Biasati, and I apologize for butchering everyone's name in advance. Why is it taking another 4 years to start the deconstruction/reconstruction of the dam itself? I think this goes to the question that was asked before. Why can't you guys do the tunnel and embankment at the same time? And it's just a measure. It's just a factor of geometry and site constraints that really are keeping us from starting the dam embankment construction. Let's go back over to the phone lines to talk to Mr. Fred Arache again.
No, I didn't have another question. Sorry. I'll lower my hand.
No problem. Those are the easy ones to answer. Okay, back to the Q&A. Tony Mercado, once again, I believe he's probably asking on behalf of someone else. Does this mean no recreation until 2031? Unfortunately, it probably means no recreation in the reservoir itself and around the reservoir and the dam site, anywhere that will have heavy construction equipment. Obviously, recreation is available in the area through county parks and trails, but nowhere that would be a public safety risk for anywhere close to the dam. S, why doesn't the project started during the drought? Oh, why wasn't the project started during the drought when the levels were already low? Mainly, I've talked a little bit about the history of the project and the expansion. What goes hand in hand with that is that we've been trying for a long time to get our permits for the project. As the project has modified and morphed, we've kind of had to start from scratch each time with the permitting agencies. And getting permits in the state of California or at the federal level is not quick. They want to make sure that we've done our due diligence, that we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's, that the design is sufficient, that we have minimized our impacts both to water supply, public safety, and environmental. So while we would have loved to have started sooner, we just weren't in a position to be ready to start. I have a motion. What are the biological impacts of the project and how are they mitigated? At a very high level, I'm going to say that it depends on the project you're talking about. For the FOCP, there will be biological impacts, and for the ADSRP, the larger seismic retrofit, there will be impacts. I'm going to kick it over to Sarah Piramoon so she can talk a little bit about the biological impacts and jump about mitigation too.
So these are topics that we are actively working through with the agencies right now to really quantify what our impacts are. The initial project, we're calling it the FERC Order Compliance Project, has built in quite a few avoidance and minimization measures to maintain habitat for wildlife throughout construction. But there will be impacts, and we are working to find projects that we can roll out and implement as soon as we get kind of agency buy-in. So I think we'll be ready to share that more down the road. And then as far as the larger project, Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project, we're actually doing construction. That is a bigger issue because we also have to evaluate, like Chris mentioned, our post-construction operations. So that I'm not ready to elaborate on because we have an EIR that we're working on, and that will be ready next year, we're hoping, towards the end of 2022, and it will be ready for your review.
Thank you, Sarah. We've got Ronald Horry. Will Coyote Reservoir's water levels be affected to coordinate with the Anderson project? And short answer is Coyote Reservoir's operation will remain the same. Long answer is it's an actual system. So as Anderson is lowered, you do have the ability to store more water in Coyote if necessary, but really we're looking for a no change in operations. Patrick Ferraro, when will the homes encroaching into the floodway in downtown San Jose be removed so it will not be inundated while the reservoir is being drained to create flood storage for incoming storms? I believe this question is best answered by Alec Nichols, if he's on the line.
Yes, Chris, I am on the line. Thank you very much for the question. So the Coyote Creek team has reviewed the flooding impacts from the 2017 flood and has identified a few homes in the San Jose area which the planning phase has identified that either will need to be acquired or elevated on a case-by-case basis. We'll be taking the property owner's input into account, as well as coordinating with our design consultants and Valley Water staff to determine which of those two solutions is appropriate for each property as we move forward in the design process.
Thank you, Alec. I've got Agnes here has asked, it might have been a kind of a type on the keyboard, but how much this will cost. I think we talked about that in terms of total project cost. So I'm going to, if you really want some more background on that, you can phrase the question a different way and we'll come back to that. But we're going to say that we answered that one for now. Dave is back with another question. How is our regional water demand going to survive for 10 years without the largest reservoir, 50% of our capacity in our district? I'm going to kick this to Aaron in a second because he's probably the best to talk about our water system. But first, I'd just like to give some kudos to all of the different water supply professionals that work at Valley Water. We have a very diverse portfolio. We have obviously imported water that makes up the majority of the water in the county. We have groundwater basin, which was excellently managed during the last drought. When we were actually coming out of the last drought, our groundwater basin was basically at normal to full levels. We have a groundwater bank out down in Southern California. I believe it's Kern, called the semi-tropic banking. So there are a lot of different sources that we have that we can make up for the loss of Anderson. Obviously, Anderson does provide us reliability and redundancy into our system because we do have our imported water coming from the South Bay Aqueduct, or SBA, which does tend to kind of come in and out of service sometimes, and from the south coming up from the San Luis Reservoir. But Aaron, why don't you go ahead and fill in the gaps?
All right, thank you, Chris. Actually, you did a great job. I think you explained most of it. I do want to just highlight a couple more things. So in coordination with all the cities and the water retailers in Santa Clara County, Valley Water prepares an urban water management plan that discusses sustainable supplies for future demands. We have a plan to maintain these sustainable groundwater levels and supplies during the Anderson Dam projects. This will rely on a greater use of imported water to make up the loss of local water normally captured in the reservoir. And the cost of this additional water is already planned for in the current rate projection using existing imported water contingencies. So again, we do understand what's going on and and how we can maintain and sustain the groundwater basins, and we do understand how important groundwater is to our South County constituents, as that's their only supply of drinking water.
Thank you, Aaron. We have a question from Mr. Gordon Jensen. What does creek wet mean? A similar flow as now with imported water or substantially reduced? If reduced, what is the minimum level to sustain wildlife? And what happens when Anderson goes completely dry when dam construction begins? So we are talking with the environmental regulating agencies regarding what the appropriate flow is. You know, it's tough to say if it's an equivalent flow to now because we are discharging to lower the dam. Obviously, in summer, those flows would naturally diminish anyway. We are looking to satisfy recharge requirements as well. So that's a long way of saying it kind of depends. It'll also depend on the climate that's coming in. Has it been a rainy season? Has it been a dry season? We will be bypassing flows from the upper watershed. So if it's a wet year and we've got stuff stored behind a cofferdam in the upper reservoir and it bypasses through to keep the creek wet, you'll see kind of some natural flows, but imported water flows will definitely be there to fall back on. Michael, why is it taking so long to finish the job? Well, before we finish it, we have to start it. And I think I explained a little bit why it's been taking so long to start. Just the increase in scope of the project as these years have gone by, more information regarding what needs to be done, and then of course getting our permit. In terms of the duration of the project, that's gone up a lot because of scope. And the second part would be because of impact and our attempt to minimize the impacts to all the different sources that we're talking about, and water supply, public safety, groundwater, and environment. So, it's a myriad of factors that are really driving the construction to a long duration, but we are starting soon, so I'm hopeful we're going to keep rolling once we start. Are you short on resources? No, the district has made, or excuse me, Valley Water has made this our #1 priority. Basically, I like to say that anyone who starts to work on Anderson never gets to leave, and we've been pulling in every part of the organization I can think of. Poor Alec is normally, on our flood protection side of the house, and he's been sucked into Anderson. Sarah's on our environmental side. She's been sucked into Anderson as well. Aaron is usually raw water supply, right? He's involved. I can see Bill Magleby, he's real estate, he's involved, right? And those are just the people I can see on my Zoom in front of me. I literally sit in a room with just key members of our organization on a weekly, if not daily basis. And when I say sit, it's a virtual room these days. Just talking about what the best way to move this project forward is. It is our #1 priority. We are fully resourced. We are not just working internal staff, but we also have consultants helping us. So we are ready to get the job done. I have Olinda resident. Is all the mitigation, and then parentheses, replacement of drop structure and Coyote flood mitigation fully funded? So yes, as part of the different kind of funding scenarios, we've been doing this with water rates and safe clean water funds. Everything that is currently part of the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project or the associated FERC order compliance project is fully funded. From Andrew Jones on Facebook, will this have any impact to the water levels in Coyote Lake? I believe, we talked about Coyote Reservoir to begin with. We intend to keep the operation exactly the same as we have it now. So, what will have greater impact on the reservoir level in Coyote is climate more than operation that we're undertaking. Motion again, why start dewatering when the EIR has not been completed yet? Short answer to that is we are dewatering now because the federal government has told us to dewater, and they are the regulator in charge, and they have given us a directive. We had some discussions with FERC regarding the appropriate dam level for reservoir. We had been operating at level 592, which we felt was appropriate, kind of minimize the water supply impact, the environmental impact. But because of what happened at Oroville and just the conservative nature, they really don't want to have any risk present that you can't minimize. So basically, they're saying, why wouldn't we lower it now if we have the ability to lower it now? So that's why we're lowering it. Annette Beatty, again, how often will you be having update meetings throughout the project? Generally, we have a public meeting on this twice a year, fall and spring. It really depends. We're actually out in Morgan Hill probably 3 times a year because we also once a year talk to the Morgan Hill City Council about the project. I would expect that will continue at about the same rate to just give updates. However, there may be more meetings as necessary if a particular topic comes up that we feel needs addressing, or if the public has a lot of questions about a single topic, rather than just continually answering one-off questions. If we see that there's a groundswell that's necessary to really get out there, we'll do that.
And Chris, this is Aaron. Yeah. You'll provide regular updates on the regular Anderson webpage, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, basically, we always provide updates on our webpage. We have a blog. You'll get next door posts, when different things are happening. That was just for our virtual meetings that we're having now. Truman, fire is an ongoing concern for the area. Once the lake bed is completely dry, the vegetation that grows there will dry out in the summer months and become fuel for a potential fire. Is there a plan to address this and keep this area clear? The lake, which acted as a fire buffer, will no longer be there, which is a concern. So this actually was brought up last week as well. As part of the EIR for the full seismic retrofit project, we will be considering fire as an impact and fire danger as an impact, fire risk, and whether the dry reservoir will present more of a risk. We will take appropriate mitigation measures, list those in the EIR, and then go from there. I will also kick it over to Sarah Piermoon in case she has any more information that she'd like to add.
Yeah, I think you did a good job covering it. I think Director Varela also spoke about this last week about how he's been checking in with CAL FIRE, and they haven't had any concerns about sources of water for fire suppression. And the other thing that we wanted to add is that we are also looking into just vegetation management in those areas and seeing if we can implement that ahead of the EIR.
Thank you, Sarah. Thankfully, Andy has raised his hand.
Go ahead, Andy, and unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Chris, I hope you don't mind if I ask maybe 2 simple questions, because I see that all the questions in the Q&A and also the verbal questions have been really sophisticated. Simple question, if I missed this earlier, what is the purpose of this tunnel being constructed? Does it, in other words, I assume that for decades there has been no tunnel. So the first part of my question is, what will this tunnel offer that maybe the dam didn't have before for all the time that it's been there. Second question is a little bit just more a memory that I have. I made a pretty rare trip for myself to Shasta Dam and I saw Shasta Lake. Of course, all of these are in Shasta County. That seemed like a really big dam and a really big lake. Even though Anderson is the largest in our county, I assume that it kind of is a lot smaller. Shasta Dam had hydroelectric power generation, I remember. You don't have anything like that at Anderson Dam, do you?
Okay, so let's take the first question first about the new low-level outlet tunnel we're building. The tunnel actually serves two purposes. From FERC's perspective, what it does immediately is provide us the ability to better control the reservoir level. As you're aware, I said that, or in case you didn't hear, I said that basically we have about a 500 CFS existing outlet that goes directly under our embankment. That's basically like a tiny straw in a giant bowl. It's not very effective at lowering the reservoir level and controlling it. With the new outlet, we'll be able to control it much better, which will help ease FERC's kind of cautiousness with the reservoir. That means we get to lower the water level much quicker. We get to keep it lower. So that will help from FERC's perspective in terms of interim risk. The second purpose that the tunnel serves is that it goes through the abutment rather than through the embankment. And it's a large tunnel. Although we'll have piping in there, the tunnel itself is 24.5 feet at its maximum diameter. And that's because right now, our studies showed that an earthquake could move portions of the dam, what we call a fault offset rupture, about 4 feet. We don't have any kind of wiggle room with our existing pipe. If the dam were to shift 4 feet in any direction, we would cleave our outlet in two, lose our capacity to discharge, and then create a scenario where if it was raining, we wouldn't be able to discharge flows, the dam would fill up, and we could see the possibility of a failure from overtopping. With the new outlet, basically that 24-foot diameter will allow, during an earthquake, that pipe to move in any direction, at least 4 feet, without incurring any damage. So we'll maintain our ability to go ahead and discharge water. Shasta is huge compared to Anderson. Although Anderson is our largest reservoir, it's like a drop in the bucket compared to other reservoirs, right? Shasta, San Luis, those are kind of dwarf the scale. So they do have hydropower facilities at both of those reservoirs. For us, we do have a small hydropower facility. I believe it's 800 kilowatts, 1 megawatt, somewhere right around there at the base of Anderson. Unfortunately, it's not that efficient. Sometimes it breaks down, sometimes it's hard to maintain. We put it in a while ago, and right now I would say that it's not optimally operating. So before we can do anything with the hydropower facility, FERC has given us the direction that we need to retrofit the facility. So that is the main priority. We've had discussions with them, and they say, before you do anything else, fix the dam, then we can talk about what you want to do with the hydro facility. Doesn't look like we have any more call-in questions for now, so we'll go back. Ms. Beatty, will helicopters be accessing the water in Coyote Reservoir for fighting local fires? That will be at Coyote will be available to CAL FIRE to pull water as necessary. It's really up to CAL FIRE where they choose to pull water from. Any of our reservoirs are accessible and available for CAL FIRE. Short answer is they definitely could pull water from Coyote. It's in the vicinity. It's a good place, good pool of water to pull from if necessary. So that'll definitely be there as a resource to them. Mr. Togonachi, when will access to driving on the dam itself be stopped? I would expect that right around October 1st, we will be, well, actually, I should be a little bit careful there. October 1st is just the drawdown, and I think, although there have been some signs posted that say that recreation is off limits, that drive-through capability may still remain in place. By the time the tunnel starts construction, we will be shutting off access. That's not slated to begin until, like I said, January, February of 2021, but in the interim, we may shut down a little bit sooner. Is Yogesh on the line by any chance?
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Yogesh, do you know if we are planning on shutting down the roadway on top of the dam crest prior to the start of the tunnel construction?
Oh, you mean for public access? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Is it October 1st or somewhere later?
It'll be later after NTP.
Okay.
Somewhere around February of 2021.
Okay. So it is 2021, so you will continue to be able to drive across the crest for now. Okay, Ronald Horry, what is the largest seismic event that you are designing the dam to withstand? I believe it's a 7.2 magnitude earthquake on the Coyote Creek Fault and a 6.5 magnitude earthquake on the, let's see, Coyote Creek, Calaveras fault, or I could have those numbers exactly switched.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's a 7.2 magnitude on the Calaveras fault or a 6.5 magnitude earthquake on the Coyote Creek fault. So basically depends on the fault you're talking about, but it's a fairly large earthquake. S. Shipley, would it be reasonable to assume the perk ponds on Coyote Creek will be full during the winter if we have normal rainfall? I'm actually going to toss that directly to Aaron because he handles our water recharge.
Thank you, Chris. And actually, even so, normal rainfall and maybe even not so normal rainfall. So one of the things that Coyote Perk is one of our most productive recharge systems on the Coyote Creek right there. And one of the things that we're looking at is making sure that we can augment the loss that we have from Anderson with imported water. And even one of the avoidance and minimization measures that we're talking about as part of this project is the Cross Valley Pipeline extension, which will also ensure that we have an additional source of imported water to keep the Coyote Perk ponds full and recharging for the sustainable groundwater in that area.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Let's see, Olinda resident. What was the outcome of AB 3005? How will it benefit the project / schedule? It sounds like the attempt to bypass CEQA was not included in the final bill. So just a few things. AB 3005 is currently on the governor's desk awaiting signature. I believe he has to make a decision by September 30th of this year. So we'll see if it passes or doesn't. There were three main components to AB 3005. And bypassing CEQA was actually not one of them. One was best value contracting. We have an independent board of consultants that's FERC mandated for the project, and they recommended that best value award for this project would be the best way to ensure a successful project. Currently, the way our district act is written, we are basically, we must take low bid, the lowest responsive bidder. And because they had recommended best value award, that's how kind of AB 3005 came about. Fortunately, Assemblymember Rivas worked with Valley Water to get that legislation moving. The second kind of pillar of AB 3005 was expedited judicial review. So if we are for any reason taken to court for anything that's going on with the project, AB 3005 expedites the time that we have to spend waiting. So we get to court faster, have our proceedings hopefully in the attempt to resolve everything and keep the project moving. And the third component was statutory deadlines. And it was really for the agencies involved to, I don't want to say compel, but basically it was kind of a guarantee from the agencies involved that they would stick to the guidelines that are in place for review times. So right now, a lot of the agencies, because of either resourcing or backlog or workload or just the complexity of many projects, can take longer than they're statutorily given to review and provide a permit or permit conditions, or even just respond that we need to do more on our end. So that was the third component, is to make sure those statutory guidelines are adhered to. And it's all designed to move the process forward in a timely manner and ensure a successful completion of the project.
Chris, this is Rachel Gibson. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm the Acting Chief of External Affairs. I just wanted to add to what Chris mentioned about AB 3005. The Olinda resident had asked, it sounded like the attempt to bypass CEQA was not included in the final bill. I want to just be totally clear. There was never, ever any attempt to bypass CEQA whatsoever. In fact, that component of the bill was just to provide Anderson the same benefit that other projects have received in terms of just making sure that if there is a judicial challenge, that it gets expedited and resolved quickly, knowing that this is a critical life safety project. So that was really the goal of the bill. That's a benefit that's been extolled upon other projects, sports stadiums, the legislative office building there in Sacramento itself. We thought that a critical life safety project such as Anderson that could really save the region from catastrophic loss deserved that exact same benefit. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel is another one of those members of Valley Water who got sucked into the project and can never leave now. So we have a phone-in caller, Agnes.
How often does Valley Water inspect the dams and the reservoirs, and why did FERC have to come in and mandate that Anderson be drained?
So we inspect the reservoir on a yearly basis at a minimum, and actually after any sort of a seismic event, we go out there. But realistically, we have staff out there on an ongoing basis, and they do visual checks whenever they're out anyway. So the dam gets inspected on a regular basis. As for why did FERC step in, I think you heard a little bit about the evolution of the project. Basically, throughout that, every time the project increased in scope, we had to reset our permitting actions. So FERC has stepped in order to try to help us move the project along. They've given us a unique opportunity with this FERC order and the declaration of a federal emergency to at least kind of jump the line when it comes to permitting and basically compress those review times with those agencies. We've gotten concurrence from all of the federal agencies that they're going to provide consultation for this project in a very compressed time frame, as well as the state agencies. So they're helping us to push this project along. Really, Valley Water doesn't have the authority under a normal circumstance to request, well, we can definitely always ask an agency if they'll provide us with a quicker review than they're statutorily required to. But realistically, with all the different competing priorities across the state, Valley Water may not be the top priority. So although we can ask, you know, it's rare that we're able to kind of jump the line. FERC being involved in this process has helped that. We've gotten congressional help as well. You know, Representative Lofgren has been instrumental in moving this project forward. She's very concerned about her residents. She wants to see this get done. So, you know, we've basically, this is a coming together of several different parties to meet a mutual goal, which is to get this project constructed. Peter Anderson on the phone.
Chris, I'm getting an error message that he's got an auto version of Zoom, so I will have to actually promote him to panelist, so it might be a couple seconds here.
Okay. We'll take another question real quick from Fred Arache. Any plans to widen Cochrane Road along the parking areas? It looks to be compromised. Yogesh, I'm going to kick that one to you.
So at this time, no plans to widen Cochrane Road for ADTP construction. When we hire the contractor to come in to do ADTP, he's going to submit his traffic control plan, and same for ADSRP. For ADSRP, there's going to be a greater impact that's starting in 2024 to construction traffic, just because the amount of material that needs to be moved. So at that time, we'll have a traffic control plan, and there may be 3 periods of brief closures for Cochrane Road during that, but that's not for the larger dam construction project in 2024. So no plans to widen it at this time.
Okay, thank you, Yogesh. I also received clarification on the dam crest question that was asked earlier. It looks like we will be restricting access to the dam crest starting on October 1st. So just wanted to get that in the record to clarify, because I believe we thought it might start later, but it looks like October 1st is the date. Let's see.
We have Peter on the panelist side now. So Peter, if you enable your microphone, please feel free to ask your question.
There we go. I believe I had sent it in by email, but see if I can reconstruct it. The question was that in February we were compliant with the FERC requirements, but all of a sudden there was a command that we begin the draining of the reservoir beginning October 1st. What event or what report was filed? What new information was governed? What policy review came up that would trigger that sudden reaction?
So I wouldn't say it was a sudden reaction. FERC has been monitoring the situation for a long time. We've been working with FERC both through our Board of Consultants meetings, which they do attend, and our regular trips out to Washington, D.C. We go out there twice a year. So we do talk to them about the status of the project. We were showing the timeline for the project, and as it expanded, they became increasingly, I would say, nervous regarding the interim risk reductions. We do have what we call interim risk reduction seminars, basically where we all get together to brainstorm on the best ways to reduce the risk intermediately. And I'm not sure, I can't really tell you what happened behind closed doors on their end, but I do know that we had spoken to them earlier. They said they were going to request more information from us, and then they kind of looked at what we had and determined that this was the best way to lower the risk immediately. Okay. Let's see, we have MH resident, I'm taking that's Morgan Hill. If not already discussed, can you please discuss any traffic impact to Cochrane and Malagueira roads? So I believe Yogesh talked about the traffic impacts to Cochrane. Do you want to talk about Malagueira? Yogesh?
Malagueira, no, I don't know if there are any construction impacts on Malagueira.
I believe there are none for the tunnel project. At one point, there may have been a conveyor system that was contemplated during the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project. That has been taken offline or off the table. So there will probably be construction traffic on Malaguera, but that will be up to the contractor to determine the traffic control plan.
Yeah, we don't have the conveyor system for the ADSRP anyway.
Correct. Okay. David Lister, will the San Pedro Perk ponds be affected by drawdown of Anderson Lake? Aaron Baker, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. No, the San Pedro Perk ponds, well, they will continue their normal operation that they have right now. They're currently they will be fed from the Santa Clara conduit, which receives its water from San Luis Reservoir.
Thank you, Aaron. Gordon Jensen, with the new higher capacity outlet pipe, is there a situation where the pipe would be opened up completely? What is the downstream impact of that flow rate? What about places like the dam at Metcalf, where the dam panels all have to be removed if Anderson is going to spill? Are any other locations like this that might not be able to handle the flow of the new pipe? That's a very detailed and informed question, Mr. Jensen. I would say that there's a simple answer, which is the pipe will actually never be able to flow at its full capacity. If we were to fully unrestrict the pipe, it could flow as high as 6,000 CFS. However, we have two fixed cone valves that will cap the capacity of the pipe right around 2,000, 2,100 CFS. That said, even that rate could be enough to cause some issues downstream. I believe Alec Nichols spoke earlier about the Coyote Creek flood protection elements that are going to be installed as mitigation for this. Basically, in those situations, the homes that are within the potential flooding area of the discharge that we currently are projecting will be remediated in some fashion or mitigated in some fashion. Metcalf is actually, I believe, what I refer to as the Coyote Perk Dam, where we do have the flashboard dam in there, and you're correct. Basically, panels do have to be removed if Anderson is going to spill, and to remedy that, we have proposed a mitigation and avoidance measure of an inflatable dam that will give us better control. Basically, we won't have to get in the week before we see the high flows coming to remove those flashboards, wait till the flow subside, wait till the system drains and put them back in. It'll be much more push of a button. We have one of these at our Kirk Dam facility, where basically leading into the event, we can deflate the dam, let the flows pass, and automatically reinflate the dam or reinflate it in a shorter time frame. So Aaron, do you have any other additional information on any of the facilities there that you might think would be helpful?
No, Chris, I think you did a great job. And Gordon, I'm impressed with your knowledge of the facilities on Coyote Creek.
Okay. We have Morgan Hill resident. I live by Anderson Dam. How much noise should I expect from vehicle and construction noise? Most of us are working from home now. Realistically, at least through the Anderson Dam Tunnel project, the construction will be on the opposite side of the reservoir where most likely you are living. Backup beeps do tend to travel, so you may hear a beep, beep, beep. But for engines and idling noise, we do our best to do noise control. They can erect noise control structures that basically project the noise away from certain areas. So if there is a situation where you are getting bothered by construction noise as the project starts, please let us know, and we'll do everything in our power to see if we can find an appropriate measure to put into place. Mr. Arache, the specific area of concern for Cochrane Road is currently where the water drains. Yogesh, where the water drains, is there any impact to Cochrane that you can foresee?
No, not for ADTP. I don't see impact to where the water drains. For ADSRP, as we're developing 90% plans, we'll have a clear picture on exactly what the impacts would be.
Okay.
So in our follow-up meetings, we can give you more detail on that.
Okay, thank you very much. David Lister, what will the traffic be? Interesting. What will the traffic impact be on Cochrane Road during construction? I think I've grilled Yogesh about that a few times right now. During the ADTP, it looks like it's going to be minimal. We will come back out once we know more for the ADSRP and kind of update the public then. Ronald Horry, what changes have been done downstream after the Coyote Creek floods of 2017 to prevent flooding? Could the bigger outlet pipes cause flooding when they are wide open? I'm going to kick it to you again, Alex, so you can talk about the different measures that have already been put in place, as well as the future measures that are going to be installed.
No problem. Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Ronald. There have been some emergency measures that were implemented right after the 2017 flood. A few of them, I believe, were in the Rock Springs area. And then what we have done since then is split the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project that was as a result of the 2017 20-year flood into 2 projects to accelerate the portions that need to be designed, constructed, and in place before the Anderson Dam Tunnel project is constructed and implemented and opened up by December of 2023. So 40% essentially of the original Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project will now be a mitigation measure that is needed to be implemented, designed, constructed, and in place to prevent the flows coming down from the Anderson Dam Tunnel project, as well as incidental flows from tributaries from about a 10-year flood event, or storm event, I should say. Those flows, that's what we're designing for, and that's what we're constructing before December of 2023. That is our plan.
Thank you, Alec. From Israel Torres on Facebook, what about the homeless along the creek? Will dewatering bring creek levels up? So we do expect that dewatering will raise the creek incrementally. We don't expect the homeless population to be affected unless they are actually in the creek itself. Sometimes there are islands in the creek that they tend to camp on. And under that situation, basically they'll have to cross a little more water. We don't expect them to get inundated to the point at which they would be flooded out or lose their possessions. They would basically have to carry them across the creek. But most cases, if they're away from the creek itself, we don't expect that the levels will substantially change and cause them any issues. Ms. Beatty, there are bulldozers running along the west shore of the reservoir now at the south end of the old marina. What are they doing? This may be as part of the geotechnical exploration we're doing right now in terms of the landslide mitigation. I'm going to kick it to Yogesh to get some confirmation, and if not, I'm going to kick it to Aaron to find out what we're doing.
That's correct, Chris. We are performing geotechnical borings along the Hoot Owl landslide and the Boat Marina landslide. So we have Tabor and AECOM, our consultants. They're out there doing the geotechnical borings. They're actually clearing the area before the drill rig goes in, and they're putting straw wattles, etc. Those are part of our best management practices. You'll see some black tarp on the ground to make sure there's no spill or etc. And I think they have a biologist also on site walking ahead of the bulldozers, as you say, to make sure we don't damage any endangered species or so on. So yeah, that's what they're doing. We're investigating the landslide.
Thank you, Yogesh. Don't get too comfortable. Got another one for you. Where will the excavation spoils from the tunnel be deposited or stored?
Yes, so as part of ADTP, everything will be on site. We're not taking anything off site. As we create the excavation, it's a massive excavation for the tunnel. We're going to construct a roadway that, or widen a roadway that goes from the bottom part of the reservoir up all the way to the top where you have the parking lot. And so all the spoils will be transported kind of diagonally across the dam onto the parking lot that you have up at the top.
Thank you, Yogesh. David Lister, will there be any lake bed soil analysis done when the lake is drawn down? I was thinking about the plume from the UTC site. So we actually have done geotechnical exploration of the lake bottom already. It just so happens that the reservoir was full when we were doing it. We had a barge out there looking at different sites. The contractor will do soil testing when they get out there and the site is accessible to them. But I don't expect that we will find anything that we were unaware of from the plume kind of point of view. The only thing that we might find that I would anticipate is artifacts, remains. Basically, if there are any cultural remains out there, that would be the type of thing that we would find without expectation. Basically, we find them and not expect to find them. Although on our Lenahan Dam, I believe we found at least part of, if not an intact woolly mammoth when we're out there. So that's always interesting as well.
Can I add a little bit to that answer?
Yeah,
go ahead, Sarah.
I just want to add that Valley Water has been monitoring the water quality in the area where the UTC site drains into the reservoir. And this issue has, we haven't detected perchlorate. So there isn't any reason we think that we would find that in the soil.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Let's see, Linda resident, what about the 60% of Coyote Creek flood control project that won't be completed by 2023? So Alec, I think that's for you.
Yes, well, thank you very much for that question. I didn't want to take too much of the Anderson Dam team's time on this, but I will share a little bit more about the Coyote Creek project. So as I'd mentioned, certain elements of the original Coyote Creek flood protection project had to be accelerated as mitigation measures for the ADTP and FOCP projects. The remaining, as the Linda resident mentions, the 60% That will be part of the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, will need to be designed, constructed, and in place by the fall of 2025, which coincides with the higher level tunnel project of Anderson Dam being constructed and implemented.
Thank you, Alec. Miss 22 St. Clair. Will this project affect the water table south of Anderson? It seems as though Little Yagas Creek has been diverted, and now instead of a creek on my property is essentially a ditch. So the goal of the project is to leave the groundwater unaffected. So basically to manage the groundwater in a way so that we continually meet our demands. As for the diversion of Little Yagas Creek, I'm probably going to have to kick this to Aaron. I know that we did the Anderson Dam, the main and Madrone project, which restored recharge in that area, which may have affected flows. We also have the Upper Yagas project itself, but I'm going to kick it over to Aaron to see if he knows more about Little Yagas Creek.
And I apologize, Chris. I do agree with you. We understand and are keeping the water table south of Anderson Reservoir sustainable. As far as the diversion of Little Yagas Creek, it may be as part of the Yagas project. Sue might know, but if not, what I'd really like to have you do is if you could reach out to Tony Mercado or whoever, we could definitely look into that and understand where you're headed. But I do want to just answer your first question again, that again, we understand what this is, and we'll be using imported water and other things to help make up for the recharge lost by Anderson to make sure that the groundwater levels are sustainable in the area fed by Anderson and south of Anderson.
So Aaron, you did have one shout out for Sue. Let's see if Sue knows anything before we kick it out to Tony to answer. Sue, are you online and available to answer that question?
Yes, I am. This is Sue Tippett. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Watersheds. And unfortunately, I don't know enough about this description to reply to it. But we are doing work on the Yagas Creek project. So I'd be happy to respond to it separately.
Thank you, Sue. So we will definitely try to get you an answer, basically between Tony, Sue, Aaron, myself, everybody. We'll find out. Let's see, another question from Facebook. What is the possibility of this project not being completed by 2030? It's really tough to say. I'm going to see how the first half of the project goes in terms of tunnel construction. If it goes quicker than we anticipate, I'm going to say that there's a lower probability of us not being done by 2030. If we hit something, find something, something kind of goes sideways on us, I'm going to say there's a higher probability, but it's out there enough that I don't want to hazard a guess, because I don't want to have myself on tape getting played back, at 2030 saying we're definitely completing on time or we're going to miss. That wouldn't be pleasant. So unfortunately, I'm not able to answer that question for you. Let's see. Swanee Edwards, AB3, hi Swanee. AB 3005 is waiting for the governor's signature. We have a letter to send to the governor asking him to sign it. Please email Swanee, SWANEE @garlic.com, and I will send you the letter. As always, thank you for your support, Swanee. If anyone does want to join on that basically letter for governor's signature, please let Swanee know. Let's see. Swanee also says, please vote for Measure S to continue safe clean water funding. I agree, Swanee. It's a great measure. Yes on S. Let's see. Permitting process. Okay, that's governor. Swanee saying good things about Rachel. I also agree with that. Good thing, Rachel. Let's see. John Hughes. The current 500 CFS water release causes flooding of sections of the Coyote Creek Trail. The additional 5,000 CFS water release will cause much more trail flooding. Will the trail be upgraded to make available even when the dam releases large outflows? So a couple points of clarification. We don't intend to release 5,000 CFS through our new outlet. If you did see 5,000 CFS, that would be coming over the spillway, which is kind of the natural condition that we have now. That said, I am going to kick it over to Sue because I know she's been talking to the county about potential trail impacts.
Yes, we have a decision has yet to be made on to what will happen with the low flow crossings, but we certainly are working with the county to look into that and what it would be required to make those low flow areas accessible on a greater frequency.
Thank you, Sue.
So more to come.
Okay, Mr. Gordon Jensen, will Metcalf Perk Pond also be supplied with Perk water? It seems that all of the Perk ponds will continue to be perked. Aaron, I'm going to let you take that one.
So yes, Metcalf Perk Pond, also known as Coyote Perk Pond, is an important, is one of the key percolation features along the creek there. and we will continue to use the facility. We're planning to supplement that facility with imported water. And as I said before, we're even planning on extending the Cross Valley pipeline to that area so that we can continue to also have another source of imported water to ensure that we can continue recharge in that area so that we can ensure a sustainable groundwater while the Anderson project is undertaken.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. So I've got Olinda resident. Why should we vote on extending the parcel tax measure S now instead of 2024? I'm going to kick that to Rachel. Unless Marta's on.
Yeah, no, I don't believe Martha's on. Thanks, everybody. Again, Rachel Gibson, Acting Chief of External Affairs. Of course, this ballot measure is on the ballot now, so we can point you to safecleanwater.org where you can find out more information on it. Of course, as public employees, we can state factual issues about the ballot measure, but I encourage anybody who wants to learn more about Measure S to visit, again, safecleanwater.org. It has all the information about what that measure would fund, including projects like Anderson and others that supply water for residents, businesses, and farms throughout Santa Clara County.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, we do have some questions that were submitted beforehand. Tried to answer as many of them as we could during the actual presentation and Q&A, but we do have some more. Sarah, get ready. I've got one that's coming your way. What will happen to the fish and other wildlife that depend on Anderson Dam for their needs/survival? What measures will be put in play to protect wildlife during construction? How will habitats be protected, or will they?
So I encourage you to read our project description for the FERC order compliance project, because we have put a lot of thought into maintaining habitat downstream of Anderson by using imported water, as Aaron mentioned, and by potentially replacing the percolation dam. And all of those features are really designed to keep the creek in good condition while we're in construction for the tunnel project. And I would also note that while Anderson is going to be drawn down and significantly smaller, it will still provide some habitat for fish in the, we call it the dead pool, but it's really a pond that is at the level of the lowest intake port. And it is still about 3,000 acre feet, which is the size of Lexington, I believe. So there will still be some water for fish to persist, and as well as creek inflows coming in from Coyote Creek and Packwood Creek. So there are still drinking sources throughout construction.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe we have a question on the Q&A. Will any blasting be necessary during deconstruction phase from Mr. Lister? I believe that during the tunnel phase of the project, the ADTP, there will be blasting, basically as we're creating our 20-foot, 4-foot diameter tunnel. In the ADSRP, I do not think blasting will be required when we're excavating our embankment and recompacting it, but I'll kick it to Yogesh just to confirm.
No, because we don't anticipate blasting during the dam construction. Maybe, and even the amount of blasting required for the tunnel, we don't anticipate a whole lot of blasting, but there may be, say, 15% of a tunnel length that requires blasting.
Okay, thank you very much. We did have a question submitted beforehand regarding if Anderson is drained and Morgan Hill and San Martin and Gilroy continue to approve large projects / increase population, how or what water supply will be used to support growth during this retrofit? Should a moratorium be placed on construction until retrofit is complete? Are you working with city and county leaders to advise adequate water supply for all approved and pending projects residents? If not, why? So yes, we do work with the cities and counties of the area to meet water supply needs. They project what their demands will be. We basically project what our supply will be. We meet in the middle and determine that we have adequate water supply. You have to ask the city or county in question regarding whether a moratorium will be put in place. I have not heard of one. It does not appear as though one would be necessary from a water supply perspective. We have a diverse portfolio which will be put into place to meet the needs of the population during the project. So, you know, whether they continue to approve large projects or not will be purely up to their purview. Aaron, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, you got it.
Okay. Let's see. I think we talked about a lot of these other questions regarding if we will continue to have meetings, when are we starting? One question is, what warning systems will be put in place for residents should something go wrong with draining and or construction? Will roads be widened for access, etc.? So we actually do have a emergency action plan that we worked with San Jose on regarding Coyote Creek, as well as a emergency action plan for the dam itself. During the construction phase, or pending what we consider construction, we will be developing an interim emergency action plan, basically that will have different notifications to the different municipalities. It is actually up to the municipality in question whether they would like to call for an evacuation. I know that for Morgan Hill, for example, if we tell them that there is a potential failure, they will go ahead and send out the notification for evacuation. But you know, it's purely up to the municipality. We're also considering whether to include radios, satellites, based cell phones, lights, sirens, cellular emergency alert system. All of those different things are being considered for during the construction project as to what the emergency action plan might entail. And then, of course, we've also implemented interim risk reduction measures. So basically, not only are we planning to warn you if something happens, we're looking at the best way to make sure that something doesn't happen. So that's where we are definitely talking to different agencies, FERC, DSOD, our independent board of consultants, the cities, and everyone else, just to ensure that we are in lockstep and could, one, anticipate any potential failures that might occur, and two, have minimized their potential of happening or probability, and then three, minimize the impact if they do. So let's see. I think that takes us through the majority of the questions that were submitted beforehand. Let me check one more time just to make sure. Let's see. Oh, will it be open to mud bogging for off-road enthusiasts? So there's a question about when we've drained the reservoir and it's muddy, will mud bogging be allowed? I'm not certain, but I'm going to say no. Basically, that would be a health and safety risk on the site. So unfortunately, I believe those mud bog enthusiasts are going to have to find a different location to get their bogging done. Let's see. You claim that lowering the levels started in October, but at the current rate that it's being drained, it will be all but empty by October. The levels of water are clearly being lowered now. Why get any input from the community when your plan is already being carried out? Well, so in order to actually get down to 488 in a timely fashion, we have been utilizing the water and putting it to beneficial use. You'll hear a lot that people don't want the water to be wasted, and generally they're talking about flow out to the bay. So what I would like to say is we are putting the water to beneficial use. We're sending it to our treatment plants right now. After that, we'll be sending it to our recharge ponds, and as much beneficial use out of the water as we can get, we're going to use. That said, water discharge to the bay is not wasted. It does support environmental habitat, ecological habitat restoration, as well as the evapotranspiration system, where basically water flows to the bay, evaporates, goes up into the sky, comes back, gets condensed into rain, and comes back into a reservoir. So no water is truly wasted. Even right now, if you drink water, we have recycled water, advanced purified water. So, you know, there's a little bit of a misnomer there. But long story short, we are attempting to drain the reservoir in advance so we can comply with FERC's directive that as soon as, you know, we begin draining October 1st, nothing goes to waste and we can get down in a timely fashion. Some more questions on the Q&A. Linda, just found this now. How do I get a recording of what I missed? Generally, these recordings are all posted to Valley Water's website. Usually takes maybe 2 or 3 days. I'm going to kick it to Tony Mercado for when he thinks this might go up.
So Tony's on the attendee side right now, but typically we'll get this up in the next couple of days, posted to the Anderson Dam Project website.
Okay, thank you very much. We did get a shout out from Jennifer, Emergency Services. She says, thanks for the information. She's Morgan Hill OES. We always appreciate the shout outs, and thank you to Morgan Hill OES for working with us. It's been quite the year in terms of different emergencies, and we appreciate all of the different input we've had from counties, cities, and other municipalities. Okay, so I've gone through all of our pre-received questions. It looks like our Q&A is done.
Question, Chris.
Sure.
In fact, I had a phone call earlier tonight before the meeting from a local resident. Her name is Jill Kirk, who asked the question about, at one point we were talking about a coffer dam. And what's the discussion on that? Are we still in planning of a coffer dam? And if not, why not?
So we will have a cofferdam when we start the bigger seismic retrofit project. It will be upstream a little bit. We are limited in the size of what the cofferdam can be, but there will be some water upstream. That's still in the design phase. Yogesh, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think you covered it. The cofferdam is planned to be constructed, the second year of ADSRP construction, so 2025, and it'll be, about 465 feet elevation at this time, and it'll be about, 800 feet upstream of the existing Anderson Dam. So that's still, we need a dry area to work when we, start to do the dam deconstruction and reconstruction. So yes.
Thank you, Yogesh. David Lister has a question on the Q&A. Will any removal of silt from the lake bottom be required? So right now we are not planning on removing any silt. We will be disposing of waste, basically not waste, but in unsuitable embankment material along the reservoir bottom itself. So that may help to stabilize the area. But right now we're not intending to dispose of any or remove any silt from the bottom of the reservoir.
Chris, I have one question from Facebook Live. This is from Joe Martinez. Last meeting, you mentioned something about stellar opportunities for fishing once water levels are low. Any update on that?
I do not have an update on that. I know that different parties have been discussed about different concepts for fish, let's say rescue. But I have no update, unfortunately. We will know sooner rather than later, I would expect, and we'll post any sort of information we have about fishing opportunities if they do become available. Okay, one fishing related item. I did once get asked at a meeting where the best place to fish for steelhead is, and my answer to you will be nowhere. Steelhead is a federally listed endangered species. Do not fish for steelhead. You will get thrown in jail if you are caught. That's the only fishing advice I have for this particular meeting. Okay, if that's it, I'm going to turn it back over to Melanie. It doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in. You can always feel free to reach us via email on our project webpage. You can reach out to Tony Mercado, and basically, just because these are meetings doesn't mean that these are the only forums in which you can ask a question. We're always available. We enjoy interacting with the public because an informed resident is usually a supportive resident, and we do like to go out there and basically give you whatever answers you need. Melody?
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris and project team. And also thank you all of you out there for joining us this evening and asking questions. We had at least 110 participants on Zoom tonight and about 27 on Facebook Live. So we'd like to really thank all of you for your participation. And now I'd like to bring back Director Varela for some final closing comments.
Thank you, Melanie. I just want to acknowledge our incredible staff. I mean, answering these questions off the cuff, no script. You people are absolutely amazing. You amaze me every single day. I also want to say to Director Santos that I was remiss in introducing you at the beginning of the meeting. I wasn't aware of your presence. My apologies to you, sir. And it's important that I acknowledge Director Santos. He, as a former City of San Jose firefighter, is instrumental in getting me involved, and he working with CAL FIRE and talking to the Valley Water decision makers, which is the board of directors, on continuing sustainable supply of water for fire suppression in the future. He was also instrumental in the coordinating of CAL Fire Flyby, which we did a year ago. And we flew on the east and the west and the south part of the county. And interestingly enough, the firefighters referred to what we were looking at below us as fuel. We saw it as ranches, houses, and forests. It was just incredible. And that's what we saw burn these last couple of weeks. So thank you, Director Santos, and we will continue to work with each other. I'd like to everyone to know that we have recorded this meeting and we'll make the video available in the coming days on our YouTube channel. We also compiled your questions and answers into a FAQ and post that to our project webpage. If you have any further questions about the project in the coming days, please contact our neighborhood liaison, Tony Mercado, or visit www.valleywater.org to use our Access Valley Water system. Again, On behalf of our staff, our directors, our team, thank you. Stay safe and good night.